Oh, good. I'm unmuted. The Fantasmagorium show is proud to present Money, Murder, and Minnesota. I apologize for the setting. It's a retrospective and review of all things Fargo. Season 5 Fargo. This is where this episode is where it becomes a battle between money versus God. Want to doodle some blood in a nursery? That was for Kat. The award-winning Coen Brothers executive produced and Noah Hawley run FX series of Fargo is what we are here for. So let's go. Kat is here. I am Scotty R37, and Steve is making pancakes.
Yes, he is.
How are you, Kat?
I'm good. You?
Should we do a quick roundup of Golden Globes news?
I mean, they're kind of a joke, but okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, but our boy Fargo has been nominated for a bunch of the Golden Globes. We got some Juno Temple. We got some John Hamm. We have best miniseries comedy, I think. I don't know. I didn't really read it. But it's, accolades. It's all advertising, these award shows. And so if it does attract things that I enjoy, I would like to spread the love of their Fargo show.
Yeah.
I like your hat. Did you buy that in Florida?
It came with the season 1 Blu-ray.
Nice. Oh, that's amazing. Now, have you heard anything in terms of the physical releases for season 5?
No, season 3, 4 didn't get Blu-rays. Probably just DVDs. Season 5 will probably be the same.
Oh,
I'm not expecting them to do that. And the ratings look to be about the same as the previous season, so I don't think FX is going to change their mind on that. Which is why I just bought the season digitally in HD.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, I've been watching it on the terrestrial PVRs. Really enjoying it. Really enjoying seeing Jake Tapper. So it's on FX. So every now and then when they don't have commercials, I get to see Bar Rescue. Anyway. What is this episode? We have 2 episodes to cover because of last week's misanthropy.
You said, in light of us mentioning the Nightmare Before Christmas references in the previous episodes, that you should probably get around to seeing that movie. Have you seen it yet?
No.
Okay, never mind.
Well, it's not close enough. Well, and this is we are getting close to Christmas. Is there going to be an episode next week?
Every week until the end of the season.
Like, no, seriously? They're going over Christmas?
Yeah, every week to the end of the season.
That blows my mind. I thought that there was going to be a hiatus.
No reason to. They already finished the show, so,
Well, I suppose, which is interesting. But again, I'm watching this on terrestrial television. So,
right, but if it were a show like the type that have, like, the sitcoms that run throughout 9 months, then yeah, they'll take a break because they haven't actually filmed them yet. But this is done, so they're just gonna keep airing it. Okay. And there won't be a Christmas Day episode. It'll be Boxing Day when it drops.
I know. That's what blows my mind, though. That's crazy. I get a Christmas present after Christmas, which is a new episode of Fargo. So I just wanted to make sure of the schedule.
Yeah.
So, you know who gives up? You know what? The first thing that Santa does on December 26th is get back to work.
Really?
He's got a whole year to make presents and gifts and like the elves. There's no time to rest in the North Pole. Anyway, so so this is going to be plowing through the holiday, and I'm looking forward to discussing each episode. But this episode, episode 4? Are we on episode 4?
We are on episode 4, and where we left off, we had a cliffhanger of Gator and the Boogie Boys breaking into Dot and Wayne's house, and
We
then
did.
Olay breaking into the sheriff's house.
But I have to stop you just before you continue on because I was remiss. Now, remember last time when we did this, we talked about Fargo, and then at the end of the show, I didn't say goodbye to anybody. Remember that? I was kind of addicted to the chat. So I want to just say hello to Taylor Swift, greater than Disney Star Wars. I want to say hello. What does he say? What does Matt G say? Bunch of stuff. Phantom Organist. Are there free pancakes? Yes. Not from us, but there are. They must exist. And Phantom Organist says, I would like my free pancakes. Go discover. They're yours to discover. I don't have. I was promised there would be punch and pie. Lemon is here. Hello. And thank you so much for Steve making pancakes. And I believe that's everybody. That's everybody. You were saying.
So the first 15 minutes of this episode is dedicated to Gator and his friends' attempts to kidnap Dot. And they don't fall for all of the traps in the house. I was half right about the goon who is wearing the mask of the mayor of Halloween Town. He is the one who gets smacked in the face with the hammer. Mm-hmm. But I was wrong about it, maybe swinging the mask around to the Two-Face side. He doesn't have another side to it, which I thought would have been really funny.
It would have been funny, but he didn't have it.
No, he didn't have it. Gator, meanwhile, picks up the baseball bat with all the nails in it. He kind of creeps his way upstairs. Some of the others do. He goes down to the basement. We see that there's a little toy rope ladder in one of the vents that goes, like the laundry chute vent that goes down to the vent, or down to the basement. And they kind of zigzag around the house trying to figure out where everybody is. And two of the thugs can't find, Lock and Stock can't find Wayne or Scotty, and they don't know where they are until Locke looks up and she points, and we see that there's a pull string, and this idiot decides to, I'm just going to pull on the string. So he pulls on it, and the ladder immediately comes sliding down, knocks him right on the neck, and he's on the ground. And
it's Dot Home Alone.
It is.
But the thing is, it's kind of like the Hotel California, because once you enter, you can never leave. And Wayne does get that. There's more.
Yeah.
Like, fill up until Wayne gets his.
At one point, Dot actually does unmask Gator. And
yes,
surprised to see him.
Nadine.
Yes, he's like, Nadine. And he's surprised. She's surprised to see him and is kind of upset with him. Oh, how you should be ashamed type of thing. So it's like, okay, so she and Gator clearly know each other or have a past thing, because he's probably in his 20s, early 20s maybe.
Yeah, so, not like mom daughter or mom
right.
son.
And we find out that it's been, like she said, it's been 10 years that she's been on the run. So she hasn't seen him since he's a kid. So she's kind of upset with him, which further suggests that he's not as much like his dad as he's trying to be, because she's surprised to see that he would be doing this type of thing.
Well, he's promised a lot by Roy.
Right.
Gator is promised a lot by Roy, but ultimately Gator is surrounded by people that Roy trusts more.
Right. And but I'm saying is the fact that she's disappointed and surprised to see that it's him suggests that he wasn't all that like Roy to begin with. And which is why she's kind of ashamed of them.
How old is Dot supposed to be? And we can ballpark this off of how old Juno Temple is.
I don't know how old she is. I don't know how old Juno Temple is. I don't know how old Joe Curie is.
Okay.
I don't know how old John Hamm is.
John Hamm is like 50 something.
I just know that Juno Temple looked a hell of a lot younger just 12 years ago when she was in Dark Knight Rises.
Well, yeah, but yeah.
As a little kid, so she's probably like in her 30s. Somewhere, early 30s, maybe mid 30s.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
So anyway, Wayne
Sorry, I'm
comes
just having
down the
fun agreeing in Minnesota.
Wayne comes down the ladder at one point, and he's surprised to hear them calling her Nadine. He's like, Nadine, who's Nadine? And she orders him to go down the basement, take Scotty down the chute, but Wayne decides he's going to take matters into his own hands, even though Dot has already smashed the lid of the toilet seat on the other goon's face, who's still like trapped down below. The other lady, she pulled the blanket over her head and threw her down the stairs, and she collided into Gator like a bowling pin and went down the stairs, and he went back up there, and she stupidly fires the gun without really taking aim. It's like he's just got a baseball bat with just wait for him to get to the top of the stairs, and then you're done. Or maybe she didn't want to kill him. I'm not sure. But Wayne decides that he's not going to take Dot's orders, and so he goes takes Scotty back into the master bedroom, and Dot tries to stop him, and she trips, and then she's like, no, and he goes to open the window, and because Dot stupidly didn't tell him about all the traps she set, he's electrified by trying what?
No, I think Wayne panicked, and based on his character, like, I'm not going to give Wayne any shit.
No, I'm not going to give him shit either.
Wayne is finding out, like, this is the long kiss goodnight for Wayne. Wayne has found out that his wife is like a mercenary assassin.
Right, but I was putting the blame on Dot for not telling him, by the way, I've electrified the windows.
I don't think it's Dot. I think for Dot, it's common sense.
Right, but she didn't tell Wayne, by the way, don't touch the window. Did she?
She said, oh, honey, don't touch that.
But he was. She should have briefed him on this before the goons showed up, like before they went into the attic.
Wayne's fragile. I don't think he'd get it. I don't think he'd get it.
As the people in the chat have figured out, he touches the window, he gets electrified. This starts a fire, and she tries to put out the fire, fails, and Scotty climbs out the window. Dot then pulls Wayne out the window. Scotty climbs down the trellis, and then Dot is forced to push Wayne off the roof, and he gets further injured.
He's dead. Like, he's dead.
Except
if this were real life, he's dead.
Perhaps, depending on how many volts he got hit with. Because I noticed
I'm thinking pushing him off the roof.
Well, he kind of landed somewhat on the bush and then hit the ground, so he could break an arm and a leg, but he's not necessarily going to die.
Ribs, at least.
Yeah, and so he's fallen, and she goes down the roof, and as she's dragging him away around the side of the house, she looks as the house is starting to go up in flames, and it's like this whole life that she built for herself, this new reality, is now burning to ash, while Gator and his goons just walk out the front door, dragging one of their friends, acting like, they're leaving a Halloween party or something. And I noticed there were people that were standing in the immediate vicinity watching them just walking out of this burning house, and they don't ask them if they're all right, or they don't try and stop them. They just watch them walk away down the street. So Dot, like 5, Gator 0. Because she bested them.
Yeah, she did best them, but I kind of saw it as a tie. There were no losses on either side. There were injuries, but there were no losses. And so,
Well, Gator's ultimate goal failed, though. The goal was to kidnap her, and he failed. So Dot does
true story. So yeah, no, absolutely. Then I amend my score. It is Dot 5. Assailants, nothing.
So meanwhile, Sheriff Roy is still sitting in the chapel, thinking about God and how everything's righteous and this is going to go his way because he's owed this and all that. And he finally decides to ride back to the house, and he sees that the chair is overturned and the deputy who was guarding the front door is dead. So Roy cautiously looks in the front door. He opens it. He sees bloody footprints. Tellingly, you'll notice the bloody footprints only ever lead into the house and into the bedroom, but not out. Roy grabs a shotgun out of a glass case that's right there by the front door, of course. It's already loaded. I noticed when he cocks the gun, it's already loaded, which is like, of course, he's got his shotgun case loaded and not even locked right at the front door. So he starts heading upstairs, and they intercut it a bit with Olay, who is making his way up through the stairs. And I really had my blood was racing at this point. I was like, oh, here we go. As I was in a way almost wanting to root for Roy because I didn't want Olay to hurt the little girls in the bedroom because I didn't know what he was going to do. And so Roy's coming up the stairs. He's got the shotgun. He's aiming, and he looks into the first room, which I guess might be his wife's room, and we don't see what Roy sees, but there's clearly nobody in there. So he continues down the hall and sees a bloody handprint smeared by his daughter's door. And then he just goes inside, gun cocked, and his daughters wake up and they're like, "Daddy, what's going on?" And we see this symbol. I tried to do a Google search of the image to figure out if I could see like what it is, and I couldn't come up with anything. But it basically looks like this, painted in blood on the wall. And there's
this is getting very Blair Witch for me. So what is that? What does that symbol mean?
Well, like I said, I don't know. I failed to find out what it specifically means. There are people theorizing that it has something to do with Celtic rituals.
Does it have anything to do with being Welsh and rubbing yourself with the blood of goats?
Possibly, because the Ole Munch literally means ancient eater. He's the sin eater. He's the ancient sin eater. And like I said, the bloody footprints only go into the bedroom, not out, suggesting he's further supernatural or something. And perhaps magically disappeared. We don't know. He's just gone. And this kind of disturbs the sheriff, and he's like not really sure what to make of it.
I think that Ole Munch is I think that he is actually the most pious of all of the antagonists of the show. I think that Dot is looking for a peaceful existence for her and Wayne and Scotty, and everybody else is effing that up. And so I think that Roy is going to take out Lorraine. Is it Lorraine? And then Munch is going to take out Roy.
And speaking of which, her being all pious and all that, while we're on the subject, before I forget, I'll just say that Ole goes back to the old woman's house in Bismarck, and he's in the bathtub washing away all the mud and the blood, and he's talking about how throughout history, the kings of old will always get everything for free at the expense of the poor, and that he wants to set things right and change it around to make them pay for it for once to stop the cycle. And we see that he's not just talking aloud to himself. Like the old woman is there listening to him say all this, and she's like, "Why are you here? What do you want?" And he just stands up in front of her and he says, "Pancakes."
But she's terrified.
She is. Like it shows that she wasn't just part senile. Like she kind of like when he says, "I live here now," she was just intimidated enough not to bother him. She's still credited as Mama Munch, so I don't know if she's kind of a descendant or relative, because we're not really sure. Like, is he supposed to be a reincarnation of this sin eater, or is he literally that old? We don't know. But she's now afraid of him and confronting him about it. But all he wants apparently is pancakes, and for the time being anyway, and to set the world right. And as he was giving that little speech to her, it intercut it with Roy sitting on his couch, getting very angry. Because his freedom is coming now at a price, and he doesn't like that. And that's something that'll come back later in the next episode, which we'll talk about soon. And so meanwhile, we finally also find out for the first time what it is that Lorraine does for her business. And it turns out she buys banks that are in heavy debt. She buys the banks and absorbs them from that. And, and so she knows everybody's debtor information and stuff like that, which is why she's so arrogant and looking down on people, because her whole business of getting rich is by profiting off of other people's misery, specifically off their debt. And she's being interviewed about this for a magazine, and one of her assistants comes in and tries to talk to her. She's like, "I told you I don't want to be disturbed." And he's like, "Ma'am, your son's house is on fire." And then she just ends the interview by saying, "What you need to understand is that Americans don't want handouts. They like being able to pull themselves out of the tranches, and we help them do that." It's just so she's becoming more bitchy as time goes on, that I can't. It's like, I know Roy's evil, but she's just something else too.
But I kind of, I sort of empathize with what Mrs. Lyon is saying. Is people like to solve problems. Like, I just recently went to a doctor and I told them how much I smoke and drink. And now this doctor is so invested in me because they want to solve that problem. They want to give, oh, you should take medicine. You should not drink as much. You should not smoke as much. And I'll be like, okay. But people like to be told what to do. People like problems to solve. So I do appreciate Lorraine's perspective. Have you ever seen the Hudsucker Proxy?
No.
Okay, so we're on a trade situation. I will watch Nightmare Before Christmas if you watch the Hudsucker Proxy. And by the way, the Hudsucker Proxy is a New Year's Eve movie.
Okay, I'll watch it around then.
Great.
Or
you
now.
Were saying.
So yeah, so she finds out that her husband's house or son's house is on fire. She cuts the interview short. We then cut to the hospital where Scotty and Dot are in the front lobby waiting area, and Scotty asks if those were demons that had come to the house, and she's like, "Oh no, demons don't exist." She's like, "Well, why were they there?" "Oh, they're just bad people, don't think about it," type of thing. And then of course Lorraine marches in, and I kind of took Lorraine's side at this point because Dot has been unreasonable and lying, like the overwhelming evidence which proves that she was kidnapped. And by the way, Officer Lamorne Morris or whatever finally got the surveillance footage from the gas station proving that she was there, and he shows up at the same time and shows like, "Well, I've seen it, and I know for a fact that it was you and that you were there. Now your house is burned down, and this is all suspicious." And the way she keeps saying, "Oh, it was faulty wiring," it's like, yeah, you're really looking suspicious now. So I was kind of taking Lorraine's side in that, okay, this is something that probably wouldn't have happened if you had just shared with her what was going on, because
but that's why she has her committed.
Right, but we'll get to that when that happens. So,
well, no, but like you're saying, like, okay, these should be alarm bells and whatever, and it's like, but they are, and she does use her power to have this woman committed, which what isn't the worst thing.
Right, but I'm saying that it wouldn't have escalated to that point if she had just told her to begin with about the kidnapping instead of stubbornly lying about it. Because obviously, as we'll find, I'll get to that in the 5th episode. But anyway, she wants to
okay.
Dot decides she doesn't want to talk to the police. I have to be with my husband. So she goes to see him in his room, and he's got amnesia. Doesn't even seem to recognize that she's his wife at that time. And it's kind of sad, and we don't really know what's going to happen from that. And then Lorraine is just demanding, have him watched, and we're going to make sure he has the best care. And she's bugging a nurse who doesn't really want to. She's like, you have to check in like everybody else. And then she tells her lawyer, Danish Graves, find out her name, have her fired, And he goes over to dutifully do that because that's just how much of a bitch Lorraine is. So then we cut back to this is a relatively short episode, actually, because there aren't many scenes in it because they spent so much time, thankfully, on the opening siege.
Yeah.
But we do get to cut. The last scene is we cut back to that abusive relationship that was going on between the guys in the diner that the sheriff had splashed the coffee in the guy's face from a few episodes ago.
What did you think of this? Oh, my God.
Because he said he would be back to check on him. But we also know that there's an ulterior motive that he has waiting in the wings. So he goes there, and he's talking to him, and the guy's, it's Joshua, the same guy he used for the guy that got hit in the face with a hammer, who went on to try and kidnap Dot. And he's talking to him, and the sheriff's like, kind of not. He's seeing that the guy's a deadbeat, not really listening, and he asks his wife for some water, or not his wife, but. The sheriff asks Josh's wife for some water, and she brings it over and sees that she has fresh bruises. And so he asks her, have you been, respected your man and prepping him up like I said? She's like, oh, yeah. And he can tell she's telling the truth because this guy's just a total deadbeat. So at that point, he decides to goad him into a fight by basically insulting his manhood and everything about him, that you're just a deadbeat, lives off the system, and tries to tell him, making a biblical analogy about the Israelites and their journey through the desert to salvation and having all these chances and taking advantage of it, and how this guy's not doing that. And so finally, Joshua just gets upset and pulls a gun on the sheriff. And then Joshua is like, oh, screw this. So he tries to shoot him. And of course, the sheriff's got a faster draw. And
how did you feel about the fast draw?
Well, I believed that Joshua would miss the shot because he was an idiot and a drunkard. And I like that. I liked that the sheriff shot him because I think we could at least agree that while the sheriff's motives were not, wonderful.
No, his motives, his end result was
I
admirable.
don't think it was an end result. I think that's the specific reason he went there. But here's the thing. We can both agree that guy was a piece of shit and deserved to get shot, and that it is better for the wife that he's gone. So that's when
Gator. I'm glad he's dead.
Yeah, so Gator bursts in the door hearing it, and sheriff tells him, "Oh, call the state troopers. Tell them we found Ole Munch." And Gator's like, "What?"
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Lamore here, the wife, called in the tip. He was bragging about killing state troopers and all of that. And you see, this will make our case go away, and we could settle it the way we want to. Case closed. Lickety split. And Gator's like, great. And so then the sheriff walks over to Lamore, and he's like, "You're gonna, back us up on this, and don't worry, a sheriff always remembers his friends, and I'll send you money every month," type of thing. And she's still really nervous because he just shot the guy in the living room there. But she agrees to it, and so Gator leaves, and the sheriff could tell that without Gator even having to say so that they failed to kidnap Dot. He's like, "Yeah, it's written all over your face, son. You don't need to say it." And he's like, "Well, yeah, Dad, like you said, she's like a tiger." So Gator leaves, and the sheriff gets on his horseback and rides off into the sunset, and the hero of his own.
Okay, so everybody knows that I have a crush on John Hamm, and now that I've seen John Hamm on a horse, fucking, you know what? How to Be a Man, John Hamm on a horse. So, how do you feel about John Hamm? Are you you a fan?
I like him as an actor. Yeah, he's good.
Yeah,
great.
Did you see the Fletch?
Not yet.
It's good. I liked it. It's not Chevy good, but it's good.
So yes, the sheriff is a bit nefarious, and that is clear. His primary goal in going here was to find a fall guy to pin the Munch murders on, so that he could get the cops out of his face. Which again goes to Roy not wanting to take legal responsibilities for things, wanting to do things himself, and him riding off into the sunset like he's the hero and all that kind of thing, and totally eating up his own bullshit. So it's like, okay, that's what's going on with you. So then the 5th episode has a unique start. This is the only episode in the whole series so far, I mean, other than season 4, because I haven't seen it yet, where they actually list the title of the episode on while you're watching it rather than having to look it up. And
I thought that was strange. And jarring. Almost Tarantino-esque.
Yes, and it includes both a montage with some flashbacks and just catching up with what's been going on. And it's narrated by Jason Schwartzman, one of the main characters from season 4, which is a tradition they do in seasons 2 and 3, having characters from previous seasons come and narrate the beginnings of certain episodes.
I did want to talk to you about that. I wanted to watch season 4 after this one.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what the order goes. Yeah, so that's we could do that too. So he's narrating.
Jason Schwartzman. I didn't know that was the narrator.
Yes.
It adds more to it. It adds more to it now that I know that.
Yeah. So we find out that Lorraine is deciding that now things have gone too far. It's like Wayne's got amnesia. He's really injured. The cops have proven that this was interstate kidnapping.
My wife.
And the house is burned down, and Dot is still in denial and not telling anybody anything. Oh, faulty wire, blah, blah, blah. It's like, literally, like, lady, your entire world is literally just burned down to ash, and you're still in denial and not saying anything. And Lorraine's like, that's it. I'm taking command. And so she sends Danish Graves, the lawyer, over to her own house where Lorraine's been staying, where Dorothy's been staying, and she to have her committed to the psych ward of the hospital, and brings the two, guys in the coats, in the green coats there to take her. And Dorothy imagines how she's going to attack them.
You mentioned that Jason Schwartzman is doing the narration, but the narration is almost like a David Attenborough like wildlife.
That's the idea, because it's the tiger. Everybody's talking about a tiger and all the things.
The episode is called The Tiger, for anybody who hasn't seen it. Spoilers. And so, yeah, it's like the lady tiger will often set traps and she will play possum. And so, like, the entire time you're watching it, it's kind of on the nose, but I appreciate this stylistic device.
Yes, and again, they've done this in season 2 and season 3, and I presume they did it in season 4. And so
I've only seen season 1, yo.
And so Malvo narrates one of them in season 2, and then
Nice.
or season 3 he narrates one of them, and then Martin Freeman, Lester Nygaard narrates one in season 2.
Sweet.
But they're fun how they do that. But and I assume
I'm
somebody
looking
does
forward.
it before. But anyway, so Schwartzman is doing the narration this time. Like you said, Attenborough, total animalistic, because that's kind of what happens in this episode.
It would have been better if it had been narrated this season by Chris Rock.
Probably, maybe.
Everything's better with Chris Rock.
I know that, again, in the case again of Malvo and Lester, those were two characters who died in season 1, so maybe that's a trend. Maybe because I haven't seen season 4 yet, so other than the first episode. So anyway,
playing season 4 next.
Yeah. Okay, that's right, because we want to go out on a high note when we finish, and season 4 is not the high note. So
I don't know. It's got Chris Rock.
It's the lowest rated of the 5. So anyway,
racist.
So what happens instead is she's imagining how she's going to get past these goons who've come there to basically have her committed, and Danish Graves is trying to talk her down, and sure enough, it cuts straight to her being strapped down onto the hospital bed, or onto the stretcher, being taken away while the guys are all injured, which I didn't buy for a second. It's like, nah, those two big guys would have died, but I get it. It's funny. It's a comedy. And she's like, yeah, I warned you. I told you I was going to do it. See? And so they load her in the ambulance and they take her to the hospital.
Again.
And they take her to the hospital again. This time she gets there. They put her in her own room, still strapped down. And she asks the guy for like a handkerchief. And he's like, okay. And she manages to get loose.
She uppercuts his nose.
Yes, she uppercuts his nose with her fingers and then face plants him into the pillow and straps him down there. And for a second, I thought he was going to get suffocated on the pillow.
I thought so too. Did she kill anybody?
No. And then one of the nurses comes in and sees what's going on, and they don't even show what happens. It just cuts to her walking out in the nurse's uniform, heading down the hall, and she doesn't get very far before.
You're not Lisa, or whatever the name was.
Yeah, you're not Sarah. Oh, it's my first day. And she wants to sound the alarm, and the other nurse is standing there just eating his like Chinese food, and the other nurse looks at him like, "Come on, go get her," type thing. So she sneaks away and decides to. So she sneaks away and is like on the loose in the hospital. Meanwhile, back at the
ranch,
Lorraine arrives, not back at the ranch. We cut to a restaurant first where Lorraine is meeting these two bankers, and they're thinking about selling their bank to her because they're in a lot of debt. But they keep bringing up the fact that they thought they were going to be meeting Danish Graves to talk to. And she picks up on the fact that they're simply upset because they're having to negotiate with a woman. And she's like, oh, I guess the last time you had to negotiate with a woman was with a Tijuana prostitute. Am I right? And she keeps kind of insulting him that way. And finally, one banker's like, listen, lady. And she's like, that's it. I'm knocking $10 million off my offer for just that comment of you saying lady. And then she threatens to just walk away from the deal entirely. And she gives them an ultimatum for what they're going to have to accept. And then she just walks away as they have 2 cheeseburgers served to them, speechless.
Enjoy the wine, gentlemen.
Yes.
Oh, no. Jennifer Jason Leigh is so fucking badass in this show.
She's really good. I'm like, I don't like her, but at certain times, I'm back and forth on her. It's like, okay, I get why you're upset with Dot and having her institutionalized, because this is all because she's protecting her son. Like, what else is going to happen to him because of your lies? But then on the other hand, I love what she does to those 2 bankers, but she's also really bitchy, which, as we'll discover coming up, because she goes back to the house, and she's got a whole private security there now and everything. And as she's pulling in, we see that Sheriff Roy is there. He's like, ooh, what's this about? And she's like, oh, what is it this time? What do you want? The orphans need a new roof. He's like, well, maybe, but I'm a libertarian, so I prefer to let the orphans just kind of fight amongst themselves. And she's like, well, then what do you want? He's like, well, I'm actually here about your daughter-in-law. She's like, oh, God, what's she done now? She married me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, we'll go inside and talk about this. So
didn't I say there was going to be some interaction between
Oh, I told you that too. It's like, this is what the season, I think this is where the season is going. So he goes into the office and he tells her that they were married Sunday, June 3rd, 2007.
Mm-hmm.
The day I got Sonny Barger's autograph at the motorcycle rally, the weekend I graduated, the day after I graduated high school. And he shows the picture of, and notice,
Congratulations to you.
yes.
I
And
don't know what I was doing on that day.
so the picture is almost reminiscent. They're both standing in front
American
of,
Gothic?
yeah, American Gothic. It kind of gave me those type of vibes. But Dot didn't seem like reluctant wife in the photo, almost like, because he mentions that they took her in a couple years earlier, whatever that means, and that we were married, and we were married.
Room
Yeah,
stolen?
yeah, and that they were married for 2 years, and that
Mormonized? I don't even know if that's a thing. I'm sorry for all the Mormons.
they were married for 2 years, and they went out. She went out for a six pack and never came back. And
You
he
know,
said,
if you're a successful Mormon, who am I to judge? My opinions about Mormonism they're based on ignorance.
Where's that coming from?
Well, I just don't know. I don't know what's going on with this constitutional sheriff that is like, he's decided what God is. And now I'm like flabbergasted and I'm going in different directions. And I'm like, oh no, Roy, what's his last name? Roy Tillman is like, he's a bigamist and he's got like, I don't know. And then also, like, I'm in terms of the narrative of the show, I'm sorry, I'm sort of extrapolating, and I'm just like thinking it's all about like religion and God, and what do you think, and who bestows it, and then it comes to the Constitution, but then also it's like, oh no, the people with money, and if you can change the things, and it's an interesting political, like, I don't know, hierarchical class.
I don't think he's not Mormon, and he's not a bigamist. Because,
all right, well then never mind. Fuck all that noise that I just said.
yeah, because we heard from the FBI agent that his first wife disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
Then he married her, Nadine, who's the second wife who ran away, and that's when he subsequently had the third wife. And he wants her back, as he's telling Lorraine, well, the Bible says the wife is the husband's property, and for better or worse, till death do us part.
And I love it. I love it because, and the law says 7 years without your property means it belongs to someone else. Your wife belongs to my son.
No, she says 7 years of missing person is considered dead, and therefore it's not your property. Well, she's my son's property. And I'm fond of my granddaughter, and I would love, as much as I would love to put her in a box with a return to sender, she makes my son happy, and I love my granddaughter. So what's your price? He's like, what?
I'm fond of my granddaughter.
So she's like, what's your price? He's like, what? Like, what's the fuck off money for you to leave and never come back? And he's like, well, I don't believe like that because of the Bible, Bible thumping and all that. And so then bribes him to pay for, she's like, I've heard of you. You're one of those constitutional sheriffs and you believe in all the, you're the superior law land, all that kind of thing. She's like, oh, I'll fund your next campaign. And don't worry, you will win. No problem. And he's like, it doesn't really work that way. And she's like, you don't really want her back, do you? But he does, because he feels cheated. He feels owed. And she's like, so you just want all these freedoms as a constitutional sheriff without having to obey certain laws or the law of the land, but without any responsibility for anything. He's like, yeah, freedom, upholding the law of the common man. She's like, there's only one type of person in this world who can have complete freedom without any responsibility. What's that? A baby. And he, you can tell that he's kind of.
And then she follows up and says, you are fighting to be a baby.
Yes, which is what Olay basically said in his speech to the old woman, that these people, these rich, want all these freedoms with no responsibility and always passing the buck on to people like him, which is why the sheriff was so pissed off on his couch over what happened. And so she does. So he realizes that this isn't going to work. Danish Graves walks in the office. He's like, is this something I should be sitting in on? And she's like, no, it's all right. The sheriff was just leaving. So Danish walks out and or walks Roy out and gives him his card. And he's like, well, we'll discuss the terms of the deal tomorrow. He's like, well, I'll be seeing you again, just not in the way that you think. And no offense, but I can't take a man seriously named after a breakfast.
Danish.
And lo and behold, that's when the bodyguard brings the body.
Hang on, just 2 seconds. The first time I heard the name Danish Graves, I thought of, Danish graves, not
Right.
Danishes. I didn't think of breakfasts.
Yeah, I thought
I
of
thought of
actually.
Danish graves, dead Danish,
Yeah.
Danes.
And so,
So to have that all turned around is, anyway, I'm a simple boy.
so the sheriff says, I can't take you seriously because you're named after breakfast, and I'll be seeing you again, but not in the way that you think. And he's like, what? And that's when Scotty walks up with a bodyguard, and he says, Scotty. He's like, oh, what do you know? We got a lawyer named after a breakfast, a little girl with a boy's name, and he was going on about his theory about what happened to his wife when she
Didn't he
ran
make?
away.
He made kissy face at a black person.
Yeah, and he also went off about how he thought that maybe she was, killed by Mexican rapists or all this type of stuff, and how he's fighting the pan life sexual. Oh, this guy has too much. Like, he's definitely
Oh yeah,
right, a very conservative type of guy, and he's just, you can't stand the idea of what he's seeing even outside the front of the house. And so, like, the three in a row of Danish graves, the little girl named Scotty, and the black security guard or bodyguard is too much for him, because again, he is a whiny little bigoted baby. So he gets back in the truck to leave. The sheriff.
Roy?
Yeah.
He's not a baby.
He acts like one.
Has he ever fucked anybody up? Has he like, we were talking about this last week. He hadn't actually himself busted anybody up.
But he delegates to everybody.
He killed a guy. He killed a guy this episode. We actually get some we get some fucking threat from him. He shot him in the throat. He was quick draw McGraw.
Yeah, but he still acts like a baby. Like
yeah, but he's actually, now there's a little bit of bark to his bite. Come on.
A little bit, but
well, he killed a guy. That's a lot of bark or bite. You don't think that's that much? You don't have to kill a guy to have a bite?
Considering how much of a dipshit the guy was, I mean.
Yeah, I could have killed. No, maybe not.
So the sheriff gets in the truck and he calls Gator and he's like, yeah, we're going with plan B to kidnap the husband. And he's like, put Bowman on the phone. He's like, I don't need to, Dad. Put Bowman on the phone. He puts Bowman on the line, and then Bowman hangs up. And Gator's like, what'd he say? He's like, he said for you to stay here. Yes, we know Kids from yes, he is from Kids in the Hall. Lemon Pie. Yes, Dave Foley. He's really good.
Yeah, he is amazing. And the thing is, and I like to say this, I've been learning this a lot myself, is a lot of people don't know. So share the knowledge.
Yeah. So
anyway.
So we cut back to the hospital.
Yes.
Doc comes up with a plan, and so she
goes.
You
didn't even talk about Will.
What?
Will?
Well, who?
Wilt?
Wilt?
Who's the guy? Who's the guy in the quick stop at the beginning of the show? Like the entire show of this season. The black guy.
The bodyguard?
No, the cop.
Oh, that guy? Yeah, what about him?
What's his name?
Like Lamorne, I think. Lamorne Morris or something?
I thought it was Will.
Oh, no, that's his actor's name. His name, yeah, something like that. Will, Wit. That's his name.
Wit. It's Wit. Will or Wit. That's fine. Either way, he's been investigating throughout all of this nonsense. And he has actually identified, like, everybody knows exactly what's going on and who everybody is. Like, but no one will listen to each other. Like, the cops know, like, North Dakota knows, Minnesota knows, the crime people know, the banks know, everyone knows exactly what's going on, and there is just one vital core at the middle, and it's Dot or Nadine saying, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right, well, Witt's not in this episode, I don't think.
No, but he was in the last one, and we didn't talk about him.
We did. He got the security tape of her being at the the gas station, and he went up and confronted her at the hospital and wanted to talk to her. And she's like, "Oh, I have to be with Wayne now," and left him in the lobby. And he left, and he just kind of disappeared.
Have we talked about Wit?
We did.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to recap.
Meanwhile, the two FBI agents are told by their boss to stop investigating Roy, specifically because he has the support of all these militias, and just hope he doesn't get reelected. It won't be a big deal. And he tells the story about how when everybody in China was upset about the birds or the sparrows or whatever eating all the seeds, and so they banged all their pots and pans together to scare them away. But then that caused a problem because there was no birds around to eat all the worms that rot the crops and caused mass starvation. And he's like, that's why we're not going to make a fuss about this. We're just going to let it go away. And why don't you make Roy a hobby instead of anything else? And he's like, what? So you're just going to let him get away with all this? And, the guy's lazy and doesn't want conflict. He's like, yeah. And, walks away. And that's when they get the call on their phone, admittedly a bit late, that Nadine had been found because of the arrest in the first episode. And they're like, yay, we can hobby my ass. We can go get her. So they go to the hospital as well. Nadine or Dot, meanwhile, sneaks back into Wayne's room to see him. She decides to put him inside the bathroom and tell him to lock the door and don't come out unless I'm the one who comes to get you. We have Jason Schwartzman narrating more about how the tiger will protect her mate, that type of thing.
Tiger shark.
Yes. She then is going to sneak out of the hospital by way of well, actually, before she does that, she goes into the room across the hall where we see this obnoxious jerk who's been harassing the nursing staff for 2 episodes now. And she decides to take his jacket. He's like, what are you doing? You taking my jacket? She's like, no, it's a dry cleaning. It's a service we provide. And he gets
You've
mad
been lying to me all week. You're taking all my colon out of my body. I want the cancer out.
And he grabs her arm. And he grabs her arm, so then she just smothers him until she smothers him unconscious. She doesn't kill him.
Yeah. No. Well, and that's another thing. And I think that's an important thing to say is that because he's hooked up to life support. And so we get there is even the visual representation with the beep, beep, beep and all that jazz, like the EKG, what have you. And she smothers him, but it does make a point of being like, nope, she did not kill him.
Yes. Then she sneaks out of the hospital by kidnapping another patient in a wheelchair who's somewhat senile. And just as she's getting out, she sees
kidnapping. Bowman. She seemed fine with it.
Well, just as she's getting out of the hospital, she sees Bowman and his thugs coming into the lobby, and she immediately turns around and sneaks back in the elevator and closes the doors before Bowman can get there. She goes back up to the main hall where Wayne is, and she swaps the name placards on the doors from Wayne's room and the annoying patient's room. She then goes down the hall to hide. Gator, meanwhile, frustrated that he's still waiting in the car, he's smoking a lot, and then he sees the FBI agents roll up. And he first gets out his phone to call Roy, and he thinks better of it, like, no, I'm going to finally, avenge myself and my past failure. So he gets out of the car and races after the agents.
Redeem, not avenge.
Yeah, sort of. And then he gets it. So she runs into the 2 FBI agents at the end of the hallway, the same hallway where Wayne is. They're like, Nadine, and they immediately recognize her, and she's like, no, and she's like, you see Bowman and the thugs at one end of the hall asking the nurse at the head station where Wayne's room is, and she tells them. They walk to Wayne's room, what is his actual room, but then one of the other guys is like, wait, it's over here, because the name placard. So they go in there.
Yeah, but Dot had switched them the same way that he had done the street, or she had done the street
signs. And as Dot is talking to the 2 FBI agents, Gator walks by, doesn't say anything. He sees her, goes down there, and he tells Bowman, look who's careful, the FBI is here. Look who's at the end of the hall and who they're talking to. And they see that it's Nadine, but they decide to sneak away with who they think is her husband, Wayne. And Gator's just like motioning to her as they disappear in the elevator.
Yeah, because he's like, shut up or we'll kill your husband. But it's not her husband.
Yes, and Gator's too stupid to wonder why she isn't saying something to the armed FBI agents right there to, And so she's like,
I think it's been established that Dot does not want government assistance.
Right, but, if it comes down to that, Like if it was actually Wayne, maybe she would have said something.
If it was Roy. Well, no, absolutely. If they were taking away Wayne, but she made sure that wasn't going to happen.
I know, but like I said, if it was Wayne, she probably would have told those agents immediately, hey,
where did this bitch come from? How is she so amazing?
We'll find out. I'm sure there's still more to learn about that. Like he said,
there are a couple episodes.
And so she's like, I need a minute. So they take her to the bathroom, and the FBI's like, so what do you think? And she's like, I think she's just tired of running. I think she's relieved. And then the nurse who she had strapped down to the stretcher had since been freed himself. He's like, have you seen a lady around here with light brown hair, 5'2", wearing nurse's scrubs? And the first agent, like, I don't know if he's stupid or he just decided to lie. He's like, no. And then the other girl's like, wait, what's her name? And then they burst into the bathroom looking like Mrs. Mrs. Lyon, and they can't find her. And they see that she escaped out the window. And the female agent turns to the guy and she's like, tired of running, huh? So then we go back to the Lorraine's mansion where Indira Olmstead is going to interview her again, asking, like, why did you have your daughter-in-law committed this morning? And Lorraine decides to deflect immediately by pointing out that she looked up Indira and that she's a debtor. And she makes all of these bullshit assumptions about her, like, oh, your parents sent you to private school and all of this kind of crap. She's like, actually, no, I went to college, but by working 2 jobs. And she's like, oh, but you have debt, don't you? So it's like, well, tuition was raised in the sophomore year. Oh, then you chose to go into it. And that's the way with you people. You're always in the zoo and you're never able to get out of it. Well, I'm the head zookeeper, being a total bitch. And I just want Roy to kill her.
It made me rethink my own personal debt. It was actually a well-written soliloquy.
It was, but I noticed the whole time that she's not answering Indira's question. Like, why did you have her committed? And unfortunately, the scene ends with Lorraine saying, so why don't you stop, why don't you go out and find her instead of sipping coffee in the one place she ain't at? And we don't see what Indira says in response to that. I guess she just leaves. But sure enough, she is there. Dot sneaks up in the woods, gets Scotty's attention as she's playing in the backyard, and comes to see her. And she's like, come on, I need you to come with me. It'll be fine. And she's like, Mommy, who's Sheriff Roy? He's like, where did you hear that name? He was here at Grandma's. He said to say hi. And she's like, oh, that's just somebody Mommy used to know. So it's like the plot thickens from her thinking, oh, geez, what are they brewing up? Like, what's going on? So she takes her and decides, we're getting out of here.
Oh, what is it? Oh, no. What? You come to my house where I play with my son? Like, I think it's a Godfather line in terms of assassination and whatnot. Like it's something where you talk about the nature of family. And so if Roy has interacted with Scotty, that's traumatic for Nadine.
And that's a great thing. I've seen that like in other movies too, where, hey, who's this person? They say hi, that kind of thing. And it's always a great type of scene when they do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that, to a surprise, I'm not sure how she found out, but Dot goes to Indira's house. And we see Indira's husband is in the garage still practicing his golf swing.
Oh, what a putz.
Yeah. And Dot's in the kitchen with Scotty. And Indira walks in and she's kind of not really.
Indira is a smoker.
So Indira comes in there and she could tell that obviously she wants to talk or whatever. And she's like, do you have any cable or cartoons she could watch? Well, they turned off the cable last week, but we have a DVD of The Little Mermaid. And Scotty's like, well, I hate princesses. And Dot's like, well, beggars can't be choosers. She's like, go on. So Indira says there's a remote in there. So Scotty goes in the other room and Dot asks about what's he doing in there? And she's like, oh, it's the 9 iron and the 8 iron and the 7 iron. And don't get me started on the putts. And she explains that it's just a thing where, he keeps thinking it's because he doesn't have the right equipment, and he keeps taking out more money on the credit card to get more golfing equipment, swap it out all the time. And she's like, when you get to a place where you just have a dream or something you're latching onto and you want to have it and you just can't, and you just aren't willing to accept it or can't figure out how to tell somebody else that. She's like, that's kind of where we're at right now. So clear metaphor for what's going on with Dot in a way. But the question is, can Dot achieve what Indira's husband cannot? And so Indira sits down at the table and pulls out some playing cards. And she's like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "Well, this is the price. You want me to help you? You want me to watch your kid for a few days, like you're saying? Then you got to sit down and tell me the whole truth." And she talks about how she was married to Roy, that it seemed like a safe option. There was something, she's being elusive still.
She said something. Okay, so she said that she married Roy when she was 17 and she may have been harvested at 15. And I don't know why the word harvested.
Yeah. Okay, that's the case. That means she's 29 years old in the show.
Okay. How old is Britney Spears? No, how old is Juno Temple? I
don't know.
Okay, hang on a second. I'll look it up.
It doesn't matter. The character is
it's kind of important. Like, I want to see the disparity of the relations. Don't you think?
It doesn't really matter. She's 20. The character's 29. You just told us so.
Well, I'm just curious. Well,
and the
Juno
harvested
Temple
thing
isn't 29.
And that's the thing. We don't really know what she means when she says harvested. But
she's 34. Junie Temple. Juno Temple is 34 years old. Oh, yeah. I am too. I am older than Juno Temple.
Oh, wow, she looks older than me. And so she gets
clean living.
Indira gets the gist that Roy's an abusive husband, so she ran away. And she's like, I just need some help or whatever. And then Indira's husband walks in, asking about dinner or whatever. And then he sees, inexplicably, it takes him forever to notice that Dot is sitting at the table there. And she's like, hon, there's somebody in our house. She's like, oh, yeah, this is my friend from the whatever she says. And she just got off a shift at the hospital. We're going to be watching her kid for the next few days. She's in the living room watching The Little Mermaid. And he looks in the living room and sees her. And he's like a real kid? I was like, oh, my God. It's like,
well, you know what? Like, come on. I hope that Indira and her golfing beau decide upon, I hope he wakes up to the fact that his dream is not viable.
Right. And so she agrees. Indira just agrees to take the kid in, and maybe just because having dealt with Lorraine on multiple occasions and seen how bitchy he is, and now hearing about Roy.
Also,
what?
John Hamm is 52.
Okay.
34 for Juno Temple. 52.
29 for the character, which is what matters for the show.
And
you don't know how old.
Obviously, John Hamm is the same age as Gene Hackman in Unforgiven.
Whatever. And so
shut up. It was hilarious.
So Dot walks away, taking Wayne's car, one of Wayne's cars from the dealership, and drives off into the night, leaving Scotty with Indira. And that's where the episode ends. And we're now left wondering, how much is this going to get really screwed up when they find out they kidnapped? How long is it going to take the bozos to realize they kidnapped the wrong person? Will we find out? When will we find out more about what Nadine was talking about when she said harvested, or however she came into Roy's orbit to begin with? Will we ever find out what happened to Roy's first wife, who I presume was Gator's mother? And Olay didn't come back for the 5th episode, so we'll see how he factors back into it.
I enjoy the fact that Mr. Munch didn't come back for this episode, because I kind of want him to be the Phantom of Chaos. As with the Coen brothers, it is a trope. And I think that it is in Fargo. I think that it is in Fargo series 1. And I think that it's here with Mr. Munch. I think that he is just in his vengeance. I think that he is like John Goodman in Barton Fink. I think that he is Mr. Munch is a put upon demon of vengeance, and he has paid his price, but he will do dirty deeds and he will do them dirt cheap.
He is like a Malvo or a Varga or a Sugar type character,
Mhm.
other supernatural type qualities. I do like the fact that he just went into the house to troll the sheriff. Like he didn't take hostages. He didn't leverage that to try and kill the sheriff. Like he wants to draw this out. Like
The last thing he said to Roy was, "A man is grateful."
Yeah.
He's not a vengeful man, but he will. A man is grateful.
Well, he kind of strikes me as being vengeful after what he said to Mama Munch about how he's frustrated with all the, the kings and everybody of old of always passing the buck on to us and never always having all this freedom and never having to, deal with it themselves. They always delegate and they never have to deal with the consequences. And he certainly seems frustrated by that when he's telling her.
Like, I'm under the influence of many.
And I do wonder, I mean, the sheriff probably wrote off the symbol as just being something satanic and arcane, and we don't know what the symbol means. I don't know if the sheriff discovered the little barn in the mound where he killed the goat with a weird ritual yet.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying, is that because I'm all left up, I don't know if I'm like sympathetic to Mr. Munch.
Well, no, because he is a bad guy. I mean, he did agree to go kidnap somebody for money just because.
Oh, he's killed many people, and that's why I like sort of keeping the score with Dot, and
because after all, the reason he was made to be a sin eater to begin with is because he was already a sinner. So it's like, oh, you could take the sin, and it was always, of course, exclusively poor people. But
oh yeah,
and whether he's a
that was
reincarnation
200 years ago,
person, I guess, is irrelevant.
Has he been chugging sin for 200 years?
For 497 years, yeah.
Okay.
Merry
Christmas.
Or at least his family has. That's kind of the idea, the cycle, the vicious cycle you get stuck in. You can't get out of it. And
and that's the thing. And I think that that's the triumvirate of this show, which is interesting, is that Mr. Munch is just blindly accepting his fate as dictated by 200 years ago, passed down to him. It's like, you are nothing, you are worth nothing, and you will be nothing forever, and you have to blah, 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 blah. And so that's him. And then again, juxtaposed with Roy Tillman and his father, who was a sheriff of that county, and his grandfather, who was a sheriff of that county. And then on the other, and so there's some tradition there. And then also when we get Jennifer Jason Leigh, Veronica, what's her name? Lorraine. And so Lorraine is all about, well, money has dictated the world, and this is how we do the things, and so I'll pay for you and keep you off my land. So I think it's interesting in terms of the triangulation of who is, like, there are extremes on all three sides, and I'm excited to see how they pay off.
I disagree about Olay, though. He's not just accepting it, because now we find out. In the first episode, it seemed like, or the second episode, it seemed like the reason he was saying, "Oh, I'm owed all of this," is because he was being petty. Because it's like, hey, man, he may not have told you everything about Dot, but you still didn't finish the job. But now we find out, with the background of him being a sin eater for 497 years ongoing, that him putting his foot down is something that's not really characteristic of somebody who's a sin eater, who's just expected to take the shit all the time. Like, he put his foot down and says, "No, you owe me. You are going to pay me for this. I am owed this." And the sheriff said no and tried to kill him. And that's where he kind of breaks the mold of he's not going to take shit anymore. Because he killed the other deputy and left the message saying, "You owe me." And now he's taken up residence at this woman's house in Bismarck, and he's telling her about how he's going to go on this venture. And he leaves an arcane symbol, which the internet hasn't been able to figure out what it means yet. There have been all crazy theories, but again, to me, it suggests that he's not just taking it and accepting it anymore. And we don't know why he suddenly changed his mind, assuming it's the same guy, or even if it's a reincarnation. But I think he's finally done taking all the shit, and that he's like, no, this isn't okay anymore.
I do want to say hello to PvP.
Hey,
partying. I don't know. We're like, what, episodes 4 and 5?
Yeah, we're halfway through. We're at the halfway point now.
Right. So I'm looking forward to more. I'm surprised this is much more. Did we get to the end of the episode yet?
Yeah.
So I just think that this is going breakneck speed.
It is.
This
And it's
is
yeah, the pacing is much faster, and it's reaching points that feel almost like you're at a climax with how exciting it is with the editing.
yeah.
Whereas season 1 was like, it was building up tension because it was so layered with those 2 lead characters, or 3 characters, that it was really good. But this is more like a very twisty plot, like a big, I mean, not too big of an ensemble like season 4 had, but this is like it's building, and it's really fun.
And also, like, there's a lot of, they're embracing sort of cinema influence, like as we've mentioned before with The Nightmare Before Christmas, but also I am continually hearing some Kubrick Shining. Like, it is Kubrickian, wah, 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 wah. Like, it is, and that was a terrible example. But I'm just saying, like, it sounds like The Shining.
You mean like the score?
Like the score. Yes.
Yeah, this is reminiscent of the score in the other 4 seasons.
Well,
Or first 3, yeah.
I think I said that as well. Did I say that? No, I didn't. No, this has been exclusive to season 5. I don't think that there was a Kubrickian score in the first season when we talked about it. So I don't know. I think you're crazy.
Why is that?
Well, because you disagree with me, and so then you're crazy, obviously.
No.
What?
Yeah, so I'm eager to see, like,
Next
learn
week?
what the hell. I'm wondering what Dot's going off to do now. Is she going to go back to the hospital to see Wayne? Because he's presumably off to the bathroom.
Would you be satisfied if you don't find out what Dot was before any of this? Do you want to know what happened to Dot? Do you want a flashback, Dot?
If not a flashback, I do want an explanation, because they keep kind of teasing it, and that's like the central mystery of the show. It's like, how did you end up with a guy like Roy? You know, that's like the antithesis of her.
What if you got like a good monologue saying, this is what happened? What if Juno Temple gives you want to know? Here it is.
That'd be fine.
Depends on the performance.
Well, yeah, because there's certain characters you don't need to know. Like Malvo, I don't need to know how he became that way. It's like, whatever. He is what he is. Varga, same thing. But with Dot, because it is such a central question of the season, that she's got these 2 identities and they're fighting over and this kind of thing. I feel that it's something that's more necessary to the story. Because, again, everything we've seen from her, she is the antithesis of Roy Tillman in like every way. It's like, how would you have ever ended up with a guy like him? And like you mentioned, when she used the word harvest, like I was harvested. It's like, what the hell does that mean? And so that's, in a sense, deepening the mystery. So I am very eager to find out. And I'm sure the hospital will discover sooner rather than later that jerk has been kidnapped or vanished, because I don't know what Bowman told the head nurse at the station as to why they were there when they were checking in. Like, did they see that he wheeled a guy out and they were just accepting it initially? Like, did they lie and say, oh, we need to talk to him because of, law enforcement reasons? And, it'll be intriguing. So because usually the 6th episode in a season of Fargo is where all the action and stuff happens. But I feel this structure of the season is so different that it doesn't necessarily need to be an action-packed episode. So we'll see.
Kat, could you read this for me?
PvP says, you missed most of my comments, Scotty. Anyway, not staying as have lots to do. Bye, guys. Well, we didn't miss your comments, PvP. We just wait till we finish the discussion to go over them. Are there any other great, interesting comments in the chat?
Well, and from what I understand, PvP was in the comments.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go up and see. PvP in the chat says, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap? What, Bon Scott is in this episode? I knew he didn't die. He just got tired of fame, fortune, and hot babes and tons of alcohol.
Okay.
That was pertinent to this episode of Fargo. Lemon says, hello to PvP. Cam says to PvP, never. And then PvP says, hi, Cam. And then PvP says, and faked his death. Bon is partying with Elvis and Jim Morrison now.
Bon?
Are they all dead? Are those people
Bon?
all dead?
Who's Bon?
Bon Scott?
I don't think I've heard of him.
Yeah. Well, I think Bon Scott sounds like an AC/DC person.
I don't know, but obviously, of course, Elvis and Jim Morrison are dead.
Well, everybody dies, yo.
Yeah.
You're gonna die.
As will you.
I can't wait.
Hopefully,
I will once again become part of the universe. An existential existence that will know the end of Fargo, because time is but a lie. So yeah, no. What do you give this? You give this apples or oranges when it comes to Fargo? Would you like to give it an apple or an orange?
Well, I guess an apple. They're both good choices.
I'm going to give it an orange. And I can't wait. And we will be here next week to talk more about Fargo.
Yes.
Anything you want to talk about?
No, I think we covered it. But that's
it all?
Double episodes, and we've covered the comments. Oh, we say thank you to everybody in the chat. Lemon Pie, PvP, the Phantom Organist, Cam,
Lemon. Black Philip Alvarez was here.
Yeah, Phil was here, race.
And so yeah, no, thank you so much. This has been Fabu, and I can't wait to see you next week.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was gonna do the end thing, but you didn't do the sign off catchphrase. What do I say to make the sign off catchphrase happen?
You didn't. That's the thing. You have to set me up for it to work.
What do I have to say?
I don't know.
Like, what's the sign off catchphrase?
Oh, you betcha, yeah.
Okay, so can we shut can we just can we leave?
Oh, you betcha, yeah.